Welcome to Talking Giants player profiles and projections, and today we're going to start with our starting left guard and Shane Lemieux, and then we're going to hit our rookie linebacker Darrian Beavers. I'm your host Bobby Skinner here with my co-host Justin Pennick. Let's get into Shane Lemieux. Third-year guard at 6'4", 310 pounds, was a fifth-round pick out of Oregon in 2020, coming off of a torn patellar tendon. Was hurt on the first day of pads last training camp and tried to grind it out. He's a tough guy, but ended up having to have season-ending surgery after 17 reps versus the Denver Broncos. Justin Lemieux is a player who was thrown in way too early his rookie year to start the last 9 games of the year and then missed his entire second year. I do think he's a guy who can stick around with the Giants, and he's definitely going to start in 2022, though.
Yes, happy that Shane Lemieux is back. One of the things I want to talk about is it's kind of going to be huge if Shane Lemieux can be, even if it's a short-term answer to the offensive line, I'm talking like 1 to 2 years from now, if he can kind of stick around and be an answer for this offensive line, it's huge. And how this offensive line, especially the interior, how we're going to view it, I think is kind of centered on if Shane Lemieux can be an average to good player, or if he goes back, especially in pass pro, to some of his tendencies that he did in 2020, then we're talking about starts to tank things a little bit.
Yeah, and again, like his career is now in his hands. Like he's going to get a chance to start, and if he plays well, I don't care who they drafted. They're going to figure out a way to play this guy. Similar to Nick Gates coming off of 2019, where it's like this offensive line isn't good enough to not play Nick Gates. So let's find a spot for him. That spot ended up being center. With Shane Lemieux, for him to be that guy, he's already a good run blocker, but he needs to become a better run blocker, like a really good run blocker, and he needs to get to a point of being an average pass blocker. Because, again, there's 5 starting offensive line spots in the NFL. Not everyone is going to be great unless you're the Dallas Cowboys of 5 years ago.
Right.
But for him to be that starter, he needs to just be an average pass blocker and to really grow in the run game.
And the Bills brass really liked Lemieux heading into the 2020 draft, right? Is that something? Where did we hear that from?
Bobby Johnson said it. Shane said it. So, but now they might be giving lip service. But Lemieux also said Bobby Johnson wanted to work with him. When they met at the combine.
So I almost don't even consider Shane Lemieux to be one of these guys that you're just here simply because the previous regime picked you and they just couldn't find a replacement for you yet. I almost don't even consider Shane Lemieux to be in that kind of spot, to have that designation on him.
I agree. When Feliciano was down for, a week, they moved him over to the center. And again, they're not even letting him battle with Azudu for that starting left guard. Shane Lemieux is getting every single starting rep.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, we'll go through pass blocking and then run blocking. Rookie year, 9 games. Awful pass blocking. Awful pass blocking. In fact, at the time, Will Hernandez was a better player than Shane Lemieux. Now that didn't mean Shane Lemieux was going to grow into be a better player than Will Hernandez, and Hernandez got way worse his final year last season. But in 9 games, he gave up 5 sacks, 6 hits, and 25 pressures. Those numbers are flat out disgusting.
That's bad.
Last year, playing on the injury and 17 snaps, not much, but 0 pressures allowed. But it wasn't just 0 pressure, 0 sacks. He legit looked good in those 17 reps. So this is where he needs to get, is to that level. Now, so 17 plays, you can't really take much away from that. But again, Lemieux was never a guy who, bad rookie year, throw him away. He shouldn't have been put in there as a rookie. And I do think he's going to benefit with Bobby Johnson's coaching style at the offensive line, more aggressive pass sets. When he can get his hands in the chest because he has short arms, when he can get, come off the line of scrimmage and pop guy in the chest, get his hands there, his feet are good enough to mirror with most guys, not everybody, but most guys, and stay active. That's when he has those great pass reps, is when he is coming aggressive off the line, bringing the punch. He's got a good punch with those short arms, and then the feet are quick enough to move with guys. Where his issues come in is when there's some space and he's got an athletic defensive tackle. You got to move those feet. Hand swipe comes and his feet are working one way. The defensive tackle's going the other way. They don't recover quick, and he can get embarrassed. Yep. We've seen even in practice, Leonard Williams get him on some of those reps. So to get to that, he's never going to be a guy who, a Kevin Zeitler pass blocker in the NFL. He'll never be that. But to get to an average where, you're giving up 2 sacks a year, 6 to 8 hits, and, a total of 25 pressures over 17 games instead of 9, that's the goal for Shane Lemieux as a pass blocker.
Yeah, and especially I think you give up less pressures on the interior compared to tackles. I think that's a thing in the NFL.
You look at Zeitler's numbers; they're between like that 18 to 25. So for him to like stay around 25 would be ideal.
Yeah. Yeah,
and he's playing against a good tackle with Andrew Thomas, and that's the thing is Shane Lemieux is a very smart and tough player. Like he's a hard worker, so Shane Lemieux is not going to have the miscommunications that the former guy we mentioned with Hernandez had. Like him and Thomas have that good communication, and we'll talk about it more so in the run game. So it's continue to not have the mental mistakes, but the physical issues that he had as a rookie. Where again, guys, there was 1 to 2 just embarrassing reps in the pass pro as a rookie. We got to get rid of those embarrassing reps. He's not going to be great all the time. He's going to have some bad reps, but we got to get rid of the embarrassing reps that can end a drive.
Long-term projection at center? I know PPPs are for this year, but are we kind of rooting for that?
Well, with Ezeudu, obviously going to be part of this team's future plans. Mark Lewinsky here for essentially 2 years, guaranteed. I think that's somewhere where, he can, if he has a good year, you move on from Feliciano, or you keep Feliciano as the backup and you let, Lemieux work at that and be like, hey, you're going to work at center, get the start. If it doesn't work, then now you're our first guard off the bench. Because again, no matter how good Lemieux plays, eventually they're going to want to play Ezeudu. I don't see us going to year 2 with the 67th overall pick of the first draft class of the new regime not playing. And Mark Lewinsky, you gave him a decent chunk of change. If Lewinsky's bad this year, then you have to keep him at guard. Yeah. But if Lewinsky is who we think he is, then you're not going to move on from him as a starter. Yeah,
but I am rooting for Lemieux, and I'm rooting for him to stay at left guard. I know Ezeudu is the 67th pick, a very early pick, the first pick that was devoted to the interior offensive line of this Joe Shane era. I'm rooting for Lemieux to be at left guard because I genuinely do think, at least for this year, the best version of this Giants offensive line is with Lemieux at left guard.
Yes, and Ezeudu needs to go through his own growing pains.
Yeah.
And let Lemieux hold that down. So just to recap the pass blocking portion before we go into the run blocking, just needs to get average. And I think being more aggressive, more jump sets is going to help him.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the run blocking. First of all, he's just got a run blocking demeanor. Like he's aggressive and mean. I remember when we drafted him, the first play you watched versus Auburn, pancakes it, just smacks the crap out of him. So you like that. And he came in right away and was a good run blocker right away as a rookie.
Yep.
Through all his pass blocking struggles. He's got good feet, like a nice base with good posture. Like you don't see a guy who's like kind of that mauler, like mean type, who's got the good posture that Shane Lemieux has. A lot of times those guys are just leaning like crazy. Their feet get skinny because they're trying to drive a guy to freaking Mars with his blocks, and they'll land up on the ground. No, he plays with a good posture with that meanness, and he has that ability to keep the feet moving and drive a guy through the block. Like he fires off the ball low, hard, but again without leaning too much in that, and has that that proper posture.
You mentioned him and Andrew Thomas in the pass game. I think they work better in the running game together, where they're comboing, they're doubling guys, they're moving up to the secondary level. So I'm excited to see him and AT work those.
They had great chemistry. Like when they worked double teams together, it was beautiful. Like it was some of the more fun things to watch in 2020.
And that's when the Giants' running game started to pick up a little bit more. When Hernandez kind of got COVID and went down for a couple weeks. So yeah, absolutely.
And again, they're both smart, tough players, where they would step with the right foot, they're hip to hip, and they're moving those blocks. And again, a lot of times, the best way to do a combo block is to block the defensive lineman into the linebacker instead of having the timing perfect of coming off at the right time.
Yeah. And
that's what Lemieux and Andrew Thomas did a lot, where they were driving a guy 5-6 yards backward. You didn't have to come off to a linebacker because you washed that D lineman into the linebacker and allowed Wayne Gallman to come off the hip of either Thomas or Lemieux, whether we're deciding on what type of run it was.
AT has talked about Lemieux a lot too. I mean, I don't hear Shane Lemieux talk a ton, but whenever Andrew Thomas is talking, he mentions Shane Lemieux by name and be like, hey, I got a good mix with him. I have a good chemistry with him. When you have all these different offensive line coaches coming in, having somebody who's familiar like that is a big help.
Yeah, so they work those double teams extremely well, and single blocks. That's what he needs to do. Like we talked about being an average. Getting to an average pass blocker, to be able to be an average pass blocker but still start, he needs to become better and stronger in those single blocks.
Okay.
Getting that initial pop and driving those guys down. But he always works with good hat and hand placement, which is sometimes rookies really struggle with that. And especially a guy with like with short arms, he doesn't struggle with it too much. And he's an athletic puller, and he brings a pop.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
Very noticeable that he pulls very well.
I was going to ask you, does Shane Lemieux fit an outside zone scheme that Brian Daboll maybe wants to bring to this rushing offense a little bit this year.
Well, I think they're mixing. I think what we've seen in practice so far, they are truly mixing up between gap and zone, and that's what we saw out of Brian Daboll in Buffalo, is that they adjusted depending on their personnel. So, yes, I think he's got the hips and the the foot speed to be outside zone. Not as fast as, not the foot speed that Josh Azudu brings, but good, decent foot speed. And then when they're running the gap stuff and having him pulling, like, he's the perfect guy for that. Like, he's a better puller than Josh Azudu. He's a better puller than Mark Lewinsky. That's when Shane Lemieux's at his best. Like, he pulls quick, he brings the pop. He's not, diving into guys and losing balance, but he does it good, fast, strong, and with good composure.
And that makes me excited, too, because Saquon Barkley, I know that he's a little bit better running to his right side because he carries the ball in his right hand, so he can stiff arm with this left. If we're going to be pulling Shane Lemieux, who's the left guard, to that right side, and that's the best combo for this offensive line, I'm here for it. Let's do it. Rock and roll Shane Lemieux.
All right, Shane Lemieux, this is a make-or-break year for you. Get to an average pass blocker and a plus run blocker.
Nick Gates probably, we'll see about Nick Gates, but now Shane Lemieux's got like the longest hair on the team, at least out of the offensive line guys.
Even Gates said, like, Lemieux's got better, thicker hair than me. So. Yeah,
it's true. He did say that in our interview.
But he doesn't have better burgers than Bareburger.
Does not. Nobody has better burgers than Bareburger because they got something for everyone. Yes, even you. They're a burger joint, but they hate labels. They don't want to be bogged down by them because they have elk burgers, they have ostrich burgers, they have bison burgers, they have regular cheeseburgers and hamburgers if you're a regular kind of person. They also have vegan stuff if you're a person who's vegan. They have, every burger is grass-fed burgers. I saw the shirts that they were wearing at Bareburger, grass-fed burgers. Just so you know, that's not related to something that's vegan. It's related to something that cows are eating grass. I learned that because I'm an idiot.
Because me and Julian explained it to you.
Yeah, because I'm actually a flat-out idiot. Regardless of dietary preferences, Bareburger has something for everybody, and the only restriction that you'll be limited to is food that is made to taste great. They have the best happy hour in New York City, 12 p.m. to 7 p.m., Monday to Friday. They have a cool little special, 2 Nashville sliders, 6 PBRs, and a martini, all for under $20, Monday to Friday, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., That's really cool. They have a lunch special as well, $14.95. Some burgers served with fries. I want you to click the link in our description to find yourself at your favorite new happy hour spot, burger joint and luncheon, Bareburger Kitchen Bar. Thank you for sponsoring these PPPs.
All right, next we have linebacker out of the University of Cincinnati, Darrian Beavers. Was picked with the 182nd overall pick in the 6th round. In fact, was the final of 11 draft picks for the Giants this past draft. Coming in at 6'4", 237 pounds, had a 36.5-inch vertical, a nice shuttle at 4.28 and a 6.913 cone drill. Didn't participate in the 40. You know, he was drafted 2 rounds behind Micah McFadden, who plays the exact same position.
Yeah.
Plays it very differently, but two positions back. And Darrian Beavers is right now the 3rd inside backer after Blake Martinez and Tay Crowder, and eventually could move past Tay Crowder on this depth chart. You know, and he was a super senior, so he's a little older, so you would expect him to be maybe a little ahead of other guys.
About to turn 23.
You know, he played.
Or he is 23.
You know, transferred from UConn, and then the past year from Cincinnati, who had a ton of NFL talent on it. He had 98 tackles, 4 sacks, 11 tackles for loss, and an interception. You know, in the year before, similar Not
4 sacks.
Had similar stats, but in 10 games compared to 14.
Yeah.
And had 2 interceptions instead of 1. Big thumper linebacker, and he plays like it. Kind of reminds me of the Reggie Ragland draft profile a little bit.
He's an old school linebacker. That's at least what it looked like at Cincinnati.
And I for a couple of years, I fell in love with the speedy linebacker.
Sideline, yeah. But the Brian Asamoahs of the world.
But the last year and a half, I've kind of went back to, you know what? Linebackers played between the tackles 80% of the time.
Yeah.
And coverage is awesome for a linebacker, but for the most part, you're spot dropping.
Yep.
If you
you're putting more safeties on the field nowadays anyway. You're taking linebackers off.
So I want a guy who can play in between the tackles, and that's what Darrian Beavers is.
Wins in a phone booth.
And he's also versatile. You can move him all over. You can be like that hybrid outside linebacker. Yeah. I don't think he's ever going to be some great pass rusher from the outside linebacker spot, but
he did it at Cincinnati.
But you can do some you can do some heavy personnel with Darrian Beavers out there. So as far as in between the tackle, I think he has very, active heads to shed blockers and ability to slip under, can shoot gaps well when given the green light as a blitzer. Like, he's never going to be, hey, this is your gap, read and react, shooting gaps. But when he's given the green light as a blitzer, he does good with that.
He's strong.
And again, he's just a physical player with a strong base. Like, he is a between the tackles, old school linebacker.
Yeah, and Bobby, this was one of those players, I think one of the only day 3 picks that the Giants had where we actually did like legit pre-draft work on him, and we actually watched him and we sat down and we talked about him during our interior linebacker draft preview episode. And I originally gave him the designation as like a like it player. Remember, my draft designations are like it, love it, gotta have it, the Cold Stone Creamery scale. So I originally gave him that designation of like it because he was being projected as like this 4th round pick. I'm like, it's kind of a slow 4th round pick, but we're talking about if this is the Giants' 11th pick of the draft, Darrian Beavers is the 11th pick. That's kind of cool. That's like good value.
I had him as a late 4th round pick. That's what I had him at. And again, the 6th round, I was very excited for that pick because I think he's a guy who, even though I don't think Beavers ever going to be some great linebacker in this league, a star or anything, but I think he's a guy who will stick around on rosters because he knows how to play football.
And you need those interior linebackers on your team.
Yeah, and you're always your inside linebacker depth. Your 4th inside linebacker every year is going to get playing time. Mm-hmm. Every single year that we've done these PPPs since 2019, and even look before we were doing Talking Giants, I always say it. Number 4 inside linebacker is going to get playing time every single year. And every single year it ends up happening. It
just tends to happen, yeah.
So now we've got one of those guys who is tough and can be trusted with that role instead of just being like a flashy guy or a guy who just is not capable of handling that role.
Yeah. Did you talk about his instincts at all? Like, because one of the notes that I have, we talked about how he's strong. I think he's a little slow. Like I said, he wins in that phone booth. But I think he has pretty solid instincts that can maybe make up for a little bit of a lack of athleticism.
Yes. Like he's good at processing, the play in front of him and getting to where he's going. Yep. He's not he's not a go until you know type of guy. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a lot of linebackers and some who even have great athletic profiles, like Jamin Davis, who was a 1st round pick for Washington in 2021, who they have all this athletic profile in the world and people fall in love with them. But if you're a linebacker who is a go until you know type of guy, which means you're not reacting, you're just waiting to see exactly what the play is to react, you're not going to be good. I don't care how athletic you are. So Beavers, even though he has some athletic limitations, he's not that type of guy.
Plays a little too upright and stiff. I think that is the biggest critique of Darrian Beavers. But I'm excited to see him, Bob.
I think he's got bad burst. That leads to missed tackles.
Like you said, he's not that flow sideline to sideline type of guy.
Yeah, that's the worry with Darrian Beavers is that when a guy does bounce outside, the tackles, there's many a times where he was left diving and grasping at ankles because he just got beat to the corner. Yeah. Now that's not happening a ton in the NFL, but still, like that literally can be the difference between a 3-yard gain and a 30-yard gain. So that's I think that is why, paired with his age, Darrian Beavers fell to the 6th round, even though I think ourselves and a lot of other people viewed him as a 4th round tackle. So I think he's gonna be. If Blake Martinez goes down, I think he fills the Blake Martinez role better than Tay Crowder does.
And definitely Micah McFadden.
Yeah, even if Tay Crowder. If Blake Martinez stays in, you can make an argument that Tay Crowder will be a better linebacker, Micah McFadden. If Blake Martinez isn't here, I trust the Darrian Beavers more so than those two guys.
Yes, I agree with that.
Let's talk about coverage.
Oh, still got coverage, yeah.
I think he's adequate in zone. Not a huge help, but adequate. He can get to a spot and drop. But you can never put Darrian Beavers in man coverage. He will get taken advantage of in man coverage. You see the athletic. So that's the thing. With a guy like Beavers, there's things you like and you can play him, but on a 3rd and 9, he could be an issue. Yeah. Then that's why we, like I just said, 3rd and 9, I'd rather have Tay Crowder or Micah McFadden on the field.
I agree. I feel like he is
2nd and 3. I want Darrian Beavers on the
solid feel for zone coverage. If they ever want to put guys in zone coverage, I feel like play the man in your zone versus just playing grass. So
I have him in zone coverage, like I said, adequate, but not an advantage. Yeah, he can get to his spot. He can use his eyes and get to where he's going to be. Maybe it'll change a little bit playing versus pros who can take advantage of just a little bit of slowness, but. Yeah, so Darrian Beavers, I had him as a late 4th. Giants get him as a 6th-rounder, and he's going to get playing time this year. If he's not the guy that gets hurt, there's a guarantee that Darrian Beavers will be playing meaningful reps this season, and most likely in the beginning of it too.
Yeah, for sure. He hasn't been wearing a sweatshirt during training camp. That I feel like he wore like this hoodie when he played at Cincinnati, so he looked beefier, he looked bigger. Maybe it's the number 0 also versus 41. Maybe 0 is like a number that makes you look a little thicker. But he's looking kind of thin in camp, and he looked trimmed. He's looking slimmed down and trimmed down a little bit. Hopefully it results in a little bit of a faster, quicker Darrian Beavers, and then maybe that bad talking point can go away about him.
Yep. All right, that's Darrian Beavers. That's a player profile and projection. We'll be back tomorrow with a preseason recap game, I think. Because
yes.
It's coming out on Thursday. So we appreciate you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, let's go Big Blue.